The question of nature versus nurture has plagued the minds of psychologists for centuries. Is man by nature aggressive? Or is man a blank slate, written upon by societal fears and misunderstandings?
Realists would argue that mankind, by definition, is aggressive. They have a very pessimistic view of the world and believe that conflict is inevitable due to the anarchic nature of international politics. They also believe that humans have an innate desire to be part of something.
So naive or simplistic to believe we can eliminate war. We're not going to change human nature anytime soon.
Aggression is a predetermined behavioral response used for survival in nature. This response is evident in all sentient species, as it ensures survival in problems involving spacing, hierarchy, and reproduction. Many ecologists have proven that aggression is only a biological and physiological instinct, pointing to the fact that the neurochemical, serotonin, is released in hostile situations which provokes a violent response, accompanied by a feeling of satisfaction.
You always make each day such a special day. You know how. By just your being you. There's only one person in the whole world like you, and people can like you exactly as you are.
Liberals believe that aggression occurs because humans have been exposed to violence in society. They draw this conclusion from the fact that we are the only animal to kill our own kind. Psychologically, humans are different from animals because we have greater control over our neurochemical responses. While we can use our superior intellect to reason out conflicts, animals must rely solely on their instincts, which do not teach them lethal aggression. Evolution has bequeathed humans with a sense of empathy, so it's only when man is conditioned for violence and given the necessary technology to kill and dehumanize a victim that lethal aggression occurs. Looking through the origins of some of the more than 14,000 wars that have occurred through history, it becomes clear that violence isn't so clearly driven by either nature or nurture, but rather it's a combination of both. In some instances, humanity was conditioned to kill, but these people would not have murdered if there was not some natural instinct to violence. Culture and our society define social norms, even those regarding aggression. So, for example, what's seen as an appropriate response or even a target for aggression. Therefore, while aggression might be natural, cultural conditions elevate our impulses to violence. As seen through history, it doesn't take that much to get people rallied up to go to war, to fight, and to kill. Through the simple means of propaganda and technology, it's entirely possible to dehumanize an enemy and spurn the people and the public into action. Typically, the newspapers and various other media sources we see, their authors are subtly hinting at the belief that nurture triumphs nature. Otherwise, their writings wouldn't really have a purpose. If humanity is just naturally evil and bound to commit genocide and engage in war, then what's the point of reporting such atrocities?
In film and media, Westerners promote the simple and unadorned liberalism of Hollywood and ignore the ambiguities of war. This is especially pertinent in Hollywood films, which criticize Western failures to intervene in international humanitarian causes, such as the Rwandan Genocide.
And in promoting such ideology, the media fails to acknowledge the possibility of a duality in nature and nurture driving human actions, and therefore they're subject to many other fallacies.
In Hotel Rwanda, Terry George, the director of the film, presents the viewer with the notion that the West was solely responsible for the tragedy that occurred in the Rwandan Genocide.
Oi. Oh, Grégoire, what is going on now? You've driven off the road. No, I'm on the road. Stop, you're going to put us in the river. Stop the car, stop the cars.
By never displaying the direct brutality of warlords and Hutu extremists, and instead graphically placing an emphasis on the consequences of the slaughtering, by demonstrating such decaying corpses. George removes culpability from these people. He instead suggests that the warlords and extremists are killing as a result of their environment, just another victim to a hostile upbringing. The real criminals presented in the film are the Western men in charge who chose to turn a blind eye to the entire event. Furthermore, the protagonist Paul consistently dresses in Western attire. It's somewhat ironic that when the West turns its back on the Rwandans, it is only a man succumbing to Western traditions who can protect the Tutsis in the sanctity that is Hotel des Mille Collines.
This perspective fits in with the liberal ideology that aggression is driven by nurture, not nature. Paul is only able to avoid the conflict and protect others because he has obtained a life of security. He is able to humanely interact with the perpetrators of the conflict, the general whose inaction supported the violence, the commander of the Hutu extremists, and a Hutu employee of the hotel. In this way, these characters are presented as victims of circumstance beyond their control. They have been brought up and nurtured to react with such brutality.
Of course, there are some historical inaccuracies for the sake of plot. Only Belgium's occupation and not Germany's of Rwanda is depicted. There's a lack of historical context, making the conflict seem more absurd than it really was, and a couple other minute details are changed.
Shortly after the film's release in 2004, Foreign Affairs magazine published an article discussing the historical inaccuracies of such films. The quote reads, "As storyteller, the film succeeds brilliantly, despite some sentimental excesses. But does it convey an accurate account of the genocide? In fact, the film's depiction of events in Rwanda in the early 1990s is remarkably free of dramatic license. The narrative of ethnic conflict in Rwanda and the sequence of events is essentially sound, although it does imply that it was Hutu extremists who assassinated President Juvenal Habyarimana, a thesis that remains contested. The early scenes in town at the hotel recreate the mood, sight, sound, and social relations of a small African capital, as well as any Hollywood movie ever has. One quibble. Like too many other accounts of the genocide, the story concludes with the arrival of the Tutsi rebels in Kigali, implying the killing stopped then. This end makes dramatic sense but conveys historical inaccuracy, since, alas, the country endured many more months of intense violence, including tens of thousands of reprisal killings.
All these directing decisions amplify the call for Western intervention. The film therefore serves well as a microcosm for current public opinion voicing distaste for Western inaction. But is it fair to harbor such disapproval for decisions made decades ago under very different circumstances?